Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Loreweek. I'm your host, Lore Guy. Wait, Lore Dude? Lore Bob. I like that, Lore Bob. So, whoops. I'm Megalore. I like that. We're gonna go with that now. Megalore. Where is this doing this? Yeah, there we go. Where? Anyways, as your host, Megalore. Before we actually get started, all joking aside, am I live? Let me double check if I'm live really quick. I appear to be live. Okay. You notice I don't even have the music going yet, and that's because I wanted to have a brief moment of silence for John Paul Stewart. For those of you not aware, John Paul Stewart played... He actually did several things, but the thing that I imagine most of my viewers are going to know him best for is playing Alexander Rozhenko in Star Trek The Next Generation. The kid. He died. We're not even sure why. To my knowledge, and admittedly I haven't looked into this yesterday or this morning. I've been super crushed this morning. But unknown cause of death. He was actually... yeah, it's just messed up. It's always messed up. He died when he was like 30-something. Way too damn young. Way too damn young. Yeah, he's younger than me. It's always weird to say that. I mean, like, Will Wheaton, he's older than me. He's like 5 years older than me or something like that. Which is always weird because I remember watching him play a kid on Star Trek. But, yeah, Alexander Rozhenko was actually... I should say, John Paul Stewart was actually younger than me. Yeah, he was in a band. And he was actually doing pretty well for himself by all accounts. He wasn't exactly famous, but he was doing well and making ends meet. And, you know, that's awesome. It's actually always good. I know this is going to sound really stupid, but I always like to see television actors who bow out of television and manage to keep making it work. Because what usually happens for television actors is they bow out of television and then they just kind of fumble around and then their careers go nowhere, basically. I mean, that's actually really, really common. So, right, I actually have the current topic thing. Here we go. Hang on. So, additional ramblings. Next topic will be Nintendo. Yeah, I'm ready for SGDQ. I mean, I got like 6 months to get ready. I really hope so. I don't know. Bartman Dilemma, and I can't tell. Obviously, I have no way of knowing. Hey, Javin, for all the BS and for all the drama, I like speedrunning and I like games. Hey, you know what? I have an old saying. It's a saying called, games are awesome. Let's discuss. Anyone remember that one? And it is kind of nice to know, every now and again, that games are awesome. I mean, we kind of talked about that during our New Year's thing. All the amazing games that came out last year. And the amazing games that are probably going to come out this year. Of course, Max Time, by all means. Oh, speed which. Is it working? Is it not? There it goes. There it goes. We're actually using a completely different music plugin. So tell me how the audio volume is. Just so this could work because iTunes is stupid now. Speaking of drama, if I could really quick here. I noticed, like, okay, can I share something with you guys? Every week, I should say, I trawl news. And as I'm looking for news, I look for all sorts of stuff. You know, geek news, gaming news in particular. I look for economic news. You know, I look for news that's going to be affecting people, you know. Basically, I just kind of cast a wide net. And I check all sorts of sites, and I check all sorts of different metrics. And, of course, I do have, like I said, I have a couple of my own subscriptions, like to Wall Street Journal. You know, I check Forbes, that kind of stuff. And some weeks, I struggle to come up with any news. Like, sometimes there's just a whole week where it's like, nothing's happened. There's nothing newsworthy this week. I mean, oh my God. Nothing's going on, right? And that happens a lot of weeks. Is this... Yes, so we have... Looks like we have about an hour and 15 for Loreweek, and then I'm going to switch over to the pre-show. So, for anybody curious. And I'm looking at all the news this week, and I'm not going to give you specific examples, but let's see. We had drama in Twitch. We had drama in television. We had drama in Civilization 6. We had drama in the economic sector. We had drama in certain actors. We had drama in a specific faction of geek culture. We had drama in... Again, I'm not going to give you any like specifics, but if you've been paying attention over the last week, you will know. Oh yeah, we've also had drama in politics because that book that came out recently, drama. And I'm just looking at this like, none of this is news. That's why I'm not actually giving you any details, because none of this is news. None of this is worth reporting. I'm sharing it with you because of my personal frustration with the fact that so many different news sites that I use have basically been saying drama. And that's basically been the news this week. Fake news. Yeah, that's a great way to put that. Fake news. Exactly right. Now, I do have a couple of actual things to talk about. Yeah, drama sells, I know. Maybe that's why I'm so small. You know what? And I'm not even saying that with rancor in my voice. Maybe that is one of the reasons I stay so tiny, because I don't have drama. Like, I mean, I had my life destroyed, but then I came back and I'm here. So, there's no drama here. Screw that crap. Get this here. I am the fake... Wait, I gotta do my best Palpatine voice. I am the fake news. I can't do it when I'm not sick. By the way, hi to everyone, especially Mini Bees for being at our first live lore week. I had a lot of help, Roxamus. I had a lot of help. From you guys, too, actually. Oh, two things before we get into news. I have two little news tidbits of my own. That's true, Tacoin. I didn't even think about that. I do have two bits of my own news. First of all, for those of you who don't pay attention, I like to announce this as far and wide as possible. We currently have the Floodgates voting phase as we have just entered. We actually did that last evening. I have been keeping track manually, which is what I'm going to be doing. If you are a patron, there is a patron post. That is patrons only, which has a link to the video and a link to the spreadsheet where you can vote. I should say that more clearly. You can vote on the post, but the spreadsheet is where I'm keeping track of the votes. I will be keeping up to date on that as best and quickly as I can in order to try and make sure that everyone is getting taken care of. This, little Billy, I only started growing this out about a month ago. No, I did not, Roximus. I have not actually been on Discord this morning. I woke up very early because an adorable young someone decided to come over and be like, Uncle Lore. That's not what she says, obviously. Uncle Lore, can you please play with me? And I'm like, and I'm just in bed like, oh. Okay, here we go. I'm ready to play. And we played Chinese restaurant, where we were cooking. Let's see, we had celery, bell pepper, and egg soup. And I had she was actually cooking, and I was the one serving all the customers. And so I had to give all the kids crayons and coloring books. It's very important that the kids are taken care of first. She was very insistent on this. And then I had to... that is not what that is, Roximus. I'll go ahead and tell you that right now. I actually haven't updated the rumination things because, long story short, I'm actually done with every rumination for the previous Floodgate cycle. So, Now, you might qualify anyways for the stream thing, but, you know, that's kind of unrelated. Don't think for a second I don't appreciate the ridiculous amount of support you've given me. Mini Zan is 5 now. She's got a schedule. She's got to do this. And then we went to play with her dollhouse, where she has these little dolls that have, like, these little pinholes or whatever, and there's, like, all sorts of accessories you could put in there, like hair, like additional hair extensions, or, like, you know, ribbons and stuff, but there's also donuts. And as I think I've mentioned, my niece is currently entered the non sequitur phase of her development with regards to humor. So she finds humor, you know, ridiculous things hysterical. So she's like, donuts in here, and I'm like, that's not where donuts go. What are you doing? It was very cute. Anyways, sorry. What are we talking about? All right, so yeah, so we have the votes open for the floodgates right now. And another thing, and I just want to mention this, I actually have a link here. That's the wrong link. I have Link to the Past when I actually need Twilight Princess link, which we all know is actually the best link. Here we go. This link. This poll is still going, and the off chance that you haven't voted, please do. This is concerning where some donation money is going to be distributed with regards to the coming year. So please make your voice heard on that. That will be going for a bare minimum of another week, probably 2 more weeks. I can explain why, but it's not really that relevant. All right, now to get to actual news. Hi, so let's talk about the money thing first. Let's just get this out of the way. Have you heard about Intel? Not the drama. So, okay. For those of you not aware, there is a feature of certain types of CPUs, Intel CPUs, which are... God, you know what? I actually don't even feel like talking about this specific. I know that sounds like a cop-out, but here's the bottom line. There's 2 things called Meltdown and Spectre. When exploited in a very specific manner, these can allow people to read certain aspects of memory on your computer or certain aspects of processes on your computer, which can be used to destroy you. Now, here's the thing. Yeah, certain types. This is a long-standing bug. This is one of the reasons why this is big news. Otherwise, this actually wouldn't even be that big of news, to be completely honest. This is something... To try and put this into layman's terms, that's what I'm going to do here. Rather than try to get all technical, let's put this into layman's terms. Let's assume... Hear me out, okay? Let's assume that I count everything on my hands, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is how I count. This is the process by which I count things, okay? Now, I want you to assume for a moment that as I've been doing this, because of this, people have figured out a way to literally, like, for example, this is a terrible analogy, but to be able to read what's on my hand because of the fact that I use my hand in order to count. In other words, the base method by which the processors process is something that is flawed. Ergo, this is something that goes back, as was said, many years. Some reports I've seen go back as far as 20 years as far as Intel CPUs. This is an overwhelming number of computers out there. Now, the interesting thing is, on a personal level, this basically doesn't matter, as weird as that may sound. This is the kind of thing that... isn't really going to affect an individual. This is the kind of thing that's going to affect major VMware servers, virtual servers. This is going to affect major server clusters, and this is going to affect the, and I hate to use this term because I hate it, the cloud. In other words, most digital information storage centers, which run Intel CPUs almost exclusively, are going to have an issue here. And I actually know, because you know I still have friends in the IT industry, I know people who are actually going out of their way right now who have been working for over the last week in order to try and fix this problem and try to find ways around this problem because of concerns for security and safety. Yeah. Yeah, Intel is by far the most impacted by a huge margin. There are certain updates that have already been pushed out, even as of now, in order to try and deal with things. There are actually 2 specific bugs. Meltdown is basically already dealt with. I mean, Meltdown is not really the issue. Spectre is the real problem. Spectre is the one that is still being worked on as of this very moment. Most companies out there are going out of their way to try and deal with this in their own ways, while the actual companies themselves, the CPUs, processors, and production people are trying to put it out. Now, that's actually not the news I want to talk about. That's just the prelude. That's just getting everyone up to speed on this. Although, if you are concerned, now would be a good time to try and push any significant security updates through your system. For obvious reasons. There are plenty of ways to try and make sure that you be safe. If you're let me go ahead and say this. If you're an individual user, the way you stay safe is the way you always stay safe. This is the kind of thing that, for the most part, can only be exploited in the same ways that other viruses can exploit you. If you see a random pop-up, don't click it. If you see a link from someone and you're not sure about it, don't click it. Don't run random things, blah, 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 blah. I mean, there are ways to catch you, but for the most part, just use your head and you will be able to avoid the overwhelming majority of the actual problems that this could cause. So that's on the individual perspective. The second thing I want to talk about is the legal perspective. For those of you not aware, there are already lawsuits that are being filed and are being spun up, to use a weird term, with regards to this situation. Not sure what I think about that. I actually... Shoot, where is it? Hang on. Here it is. One of the specific lawsuits I actually bothered to sit down and read. I hate reading legal crap. And the lawsuit alleges that Intel knew about this for a significant period of time and deliberately went out of their way to do nothing to change or fix the type of processing which causes this issue. We don't know is the truthful answer to that, Lore Reloaded, and I'm going to stick with that for the moment. So, again, let me make this clear. This is a serious issue. This will actually affect certain large-scale data servers and centers, and this is something that needs to be dealt with. But lawsuits? The one in particular alleges that Intel knew about this for a period of 18 months. Actually, that's really easy, Anthony. Like I said, it's not actually a bug. It's just the method by which the processor processes. So that's the allegement. Now, I want to make this clear that we have absolutely no evidence whatsoever that Intel has been complacent in this regard. That there's been some kind of... yeah, exactly. It's an exploit's a good way to put it. That we have no information, no hard... Oh, I should change the current topic. Sorry, hang on. I thought that... All right, we're going to talk about Nintendo next. Whatever. Current topic. Yeah. Sorry. I'm not used to this even being here. Intel lawsuits CEO. Okay, we have no hard data that suggests that Intel has been negligent. That's the word I want to use in regards to this. Now, the thing is, this was discovered last November, I want to say. We know the exact date they discovered it. Forgive me for not knowing it off the top of my head. But it was late last year, and they were like, oh. And they did what all major hardware and software developers do when they first find this kind of exploit or bug. They basically keep quiet about it and do private information releases to specific groups to try and frickin' deal with it. That's normal. As far as I'm concerned, Intel actually did do their due diligence once it was discovered late last year. Okay? That is alleging that this was in fact discovered late last year. Yeah, I know, right, Javin? But yeah, that is exactly what you're supposed to do to fix things. This is normal. It's like, oh, we found an issue. Okay. And there's like few specific counter-hacking groups. There's a few specific security teams you get in contact with. And then it's like, okay, we need to figure out a way to fix this. Okay, we fixed this. Let information out to the public. We're working on a fix. Now, this, if you're paying attention, you'll notice that Meltdown was basically already fixed by the time this was announced publicly. Meltdown, again, as I said, is not really the issue. Spectre is the issue. Spectre is going to be a far bigger problem. Intel decided to release this information for two reasons. The first one is the... I'm not even talking about that, bro. That's another issue. Remember, a lot of this is speculation, because we only have certain hard facts. But the point here is that the stated reasons, I should use my terminology more clearly, the stated reasons for why they released the information, even though Spectre had not been fully dealt with, is because they'd already sat on it for too long. You know, it does start to look bad if you sit on this for too long. And the fact that they wanted people to be aware of it and to be able to deal with it, especially since they had basically solved the Meltdown problem, okay? Those are the stated reasons. Now, their actual reasons, that's a lot more debatable. Who freaking knows, right? Javan, of course, being cynical, and let's be honest, there's plenty of reasons to think that. It is my opinion that these lawsuits against Intel are spurious. That is my opinion. I feel like this is a situation where certain companies are looking at this and saying, let's get some money out of this situation. Now, that does not mean I'm on Intel's side. Let me make that point clear. I know some people seem to think that if I am supportive of something or against something, that I am now chosen a binary thing where I completely am fully in favor of this 100% or fully against this 100%, but believe it or not, life is not quite so white and black. So, I am not on Intel's side on this. A lot of this is very shady. But these lawsuits, in my honest to God opinion, are very spurious. These are just straight up money grabs. And yeah, these things have a time delay thing. So Intel, and the best part is this is going to make it more difficult for Intel to actually deal with this, because now they have to adjust money and resources to do this. And of course, let's not even talk about Intel stock. By the way, I know I'm not a professional economic person, but if you want to buy Intel stock, now's the time. Anyways, hi Andrew. So yeah, this is just a blood in the water kind of situation with regards to lawsuits. I think we should conquer the world. Now, moving on. I do have one final topic about Intel, and I've actually done a decent amount of research about this one, because when I first heard about the Intel CEO, whose name I wrote down because I can't remember how to frickin' pronounce it, Brian Krzanich? God, I have no idea how to pronounce his frickin' name. My first gut reaction was that people were blowing it out of proportion, because all of the news sites, even the economic ones that I usually follow, even you know, the actual non-geek side of things, looked at this like he's bailing on a sinking ship kind of a situation. Some of the actual economic sites have stated that this might actually be illegal, a case of insider trading. So my first gut reaction was, no, it's not. That's ridiculous, because this is normal. Then I started doing my research. I'm a lot less convinced now. Let me explain, if you don't mind. Do you mind me going into this? Yeah, I know, right, Dakota? So here's the thing. A lot of people have the understandable misconception that a CEO is in charge of a company. That's actually not true at all. It can be true, but a CEO, which stands for Chief Executive Officer, is basically just another hired manager. Most of the time, a CEO is someone who is for lack of a better way to put this, a career CEO. You know, most CEOs that are in the office rooms of companies, major companies, are CEOs who have been CEOs for years. You know, you just cycle through companies. In fact, about every 4 to 5 years is pretty much the average time for a CEO to hold a post before they move on. I actually talked about this recently when it came to both Disney and Netflix, which had CEO issues. So And I'm not going to get into the specifics of what a CEO actually does. All I have to say is I feel pretty bad about for CEOs. That job's got to suck. Now, that being stated, so I'm looking at the situation, and the first piece of information I found was that Mr. Krasnich, or however they say his damn name, is a yeah, Iwata was a huge exception. He actually did crap, but again, it varies from case to case because a CEO isn't actually defined. That's the weird thing. A lot of companies have CEOs, but if you actually compared their roles next to each other, they're completely different. Anyways. So career CEOs, every 4 to 5 years, cycle out. So Mr. Brian, whatever his frickin' name is, he's been CEO for about 4.5 years now. So I'm like, okay, this is just normal. He's just cycling out. That's, again, the timing sucks. He probably should have had a brain about this. But whatever, he's exercising his options. That is his right, blah, blah, blah. He's out. Thing is, he's never been a CEO before. In fact, this is basically his first real job. That made me tilt my head a little bit. And I'm like, okay. And I looked at his career background. It turns out he came up through the ranks of Intel. And yeah, he has actually made his place to this CEO spot. And now the end, because that's the job he's actually at right now. So you could see how this was just a Second problem. When a CEO is cycling out, they usually dump basically all of their stock because of the fact... Now, okay, this is not always true. Let me make that clear. But what tends to happen is CEOs will basically unload all of their stock except for holding stock, which is usually way less than control maintaining stock. And then there's a process they go through where they're fired, and they get a benefits package, and they get an additional amount of money, and blah blah blah. And once he is pushed out of the company, he's fired. I have to put this in quote unquotes because it's not like you or I are fired. Imagine if a moment, just bear with me. Imagine you're working at McDonald's and someone fires you, and so gives you a paycheck to fire you and benefits for the next year. And occasionally, they'll even keep paying you for the next year. Imagine if that happened when McDonald's fired you. That's kind of what happens for CEOs. So again, normally, dump all the stock, usually have a successor pointed out or worked out with the board, assuming this is no hard feelings, everyone's cool with this kind of a thing. They get the severance, they move out, new CEO comes in. Very normal, right? But in this case, he specifically held on to the amount of stock that was mandatory by law for him to actually, or I should say by corporate law, for him to actually maintain his position. He's also gone on record as saying that he's not getting out of the company, and that he actually already has started plans for the coming year. You can start to see how the lines don't quite line up anymore. Now, here's where things get a little tricky. I know that we all kind of talk about the stocks and the stock market, and anybody who's actually looked into speculating in general knows that it's actually this myriad mess of doom. I mean, that is the best way I could ever explain the speculating market. It is this myriad mess of doom. There is so much that people do and can do and aren't allowed to do, and so much that goes through. And of course, this isn't even... Most people think the speculation market is specifically focusing on the stock market. Stocks are actually just one relatively small aspect of the speculation market. This is... but all I'm going to tell you... the reason I'm bringing up the murky mess of this is because most people, in my experience, don't actually know how to do it. Even I, if for example, if $1 million dropped on my head, I'd sit down and do my research for about a month, just to make sure I'm up to date on everything. I'm kind of passively keep myself up to date on it, but I don't really speculate that much because I don't make that much money. So That's the kind of thing you want to walk into prepared. Now, why am I bringing this up? This is my theory. I think Mr. Bryan is an idiot who doesn't know how to manage finances. I think he is someone who thinks that of the stock market like most normal people do. And I don't actually mean that as an insult, so forgive me. I shouldn't call him an idiot. But he is an idiot because of what he did. So he's not an idiot because he thinks of the stock market as the stock market, the Hollywoodized thing. I think he thinks of the stock market like most people do. So when he, for whatever reason, decided to go ahead and dump these stocks, which he did over the course of the last year, by the way. Everyone's reporting on the big drop, but he actually had been unloading stock for pretty much the entire previous year, down to the minimum that he had to hold to maintain his position. Which is just really confusing, by the way. There's basically no good reason to do that given the circumstances. Yeah, that's kind of my point, Max Time. This is kind of where I'm going towards. So I get the idea that he doesn't really know how to handle large-scale finances like this. So he just kind of slowly dumped his way out for whatever reason. We could speculate blindly, but it is definitely, this is definitely a suspicious circumstance, and no mistake on that. And then, obviously, people took notice, and then damage control basically fired back in. Here's the other reason. Here's the other reason I brought up the whole why I think he's stupid for doing this. It is my opinion that he's selling high with the intention to buy low, thinking that that's all it takes, without thinking through what that can involve. Or he is actually bailing out. I think these are the two possibilities. And both of these shouldn't have been done this way, basically. Now, there's also a legal problem here. I mentioned this is the other reason I mentioned the myriad mess of doom, because there are laws here in the States and internationally about what you can do regarding share trading. Anybody who knows about Martha Stewart knows about insider trading, at least in a very, very, very tangential sort of a way. The problem is the definition of insider trading is super damn vague. This could be considered insider trading. See, like I said, this is kind of a legal quandary. Because let's say I'm CEO of, I don't know, Microsoft. This is a completely made-up example. You know what? I'm even going to make up a company. I'm CEO of Kefco, okay? And Kefco, don't look so shocked. And Kefco makes a product that's, some naproxen sodium, okay? Now, let's say that we have just pushed out a batch of naproxen sodium, which is acidic or something really horrible, right? And just something that's going to cause our stocks to plummet. Now, I know about this before this goes out, because of course I do. I'm inside the company. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to unload all my stock, because I know that that's about to make our stock plummet. Then it goes live, information comes out, our stock plummets, and I've already basically made my money beforehand. If I feel like it, I could buy right back in. Buy all my stock back at way less money, pocket the profits. Thing is, that is a pretty clear definition of insider trading. Because the whole point of insider trading is you are trading in a way that is considered to be financially unfair. Or in other words, if you have access to information that the speculative market does not, and you act on that, that is what's considered insider trading, okay? Now again, that's kind of vague. And in my opinion, I know this is going to sound weird, but in my opinion, that's one of the reasons why we need to overhaul certain aspects of the speculative market, because there's like several reasons why that's messed up. Are you serious, Janelyn? That's hysterical. Yeah, you kind of see the problem here, Takoida, because there have actually been many occasions where individuals have basically known that their stock's about to plummet and let it happen for fear of legal repercussion. Now, this whole anti-insider trading law does exist for good reason, as most such things do, because let's just say that rampant is insider trading used to be a thing, especially in Britain. Anybody who knows your history about the economic markets and speculative markets of Britain, and Amsterdam is another good one, knows about how bad insider trading really could be. So you could see how this is kind of a weird line to cross. This is why I mentioned the he's an idiot thing, because I think he didn't think this through one way or the other, because no matter what, I guarantee that this is going to prompt an inquiry. One way or another. He might actually be innocent. This might just be him unloading because he's deciding to bow out of Intel. He's made his money, he's going home. That is possible. But, as you can see why this might look pretty bad from an outsider's perspective. So again, there's going to be an inquiry. Now here's the other weird, let's just add one more niggle to this, shall we? Freaking money, I swear to God. This is... you'd be surprised how many people don't, Mandarton. Yeah, exactly. When the general public gets suspicious, you done something wrong. Although, again, the general public isn't exactly always right, because the general public doesn't know how most economic matters work. No offense, but it's true. Now, the other niggle is the fact that Intel has been backing him on this. I don't know if you've seen any of the official Intel responses, but there have been quite a few specific statements by Intel, by by the CFO, and by the president, and by several significant stockholders of Intel saying, no, he's not doing insider trading, we got his back. Now, let me explain why that's a niggle. Because, yeah, exactly, Javan. Yeah, what Javan said was a really bad problem back in the day. Anyway, so, but this is a problem for two reasons. First of all, this means Intel is effectively doubled down. Now, if they are, well, okay, Intel is not innocent, let's just make that clear. But if Intel is not actually guilty in the manner that those lawsuits allege, and if he is not guilty, then that's going to work out. Okay. But if either Intel is found guilty, whether they are or not, and if he is found guilty, whether he is or not, because remember, truth doesn't matter in the court system. No offense, but it doesn't. What matters is what the courts say. So if either side is found guilty, both are now integrally tied together. You follow? Because the company had his back, and he is having the company's back. He's actually made several public statements since this about, you know, what they're doing with plans forward, no intention to leave Intel, blah, blah, blah. They have jumped into the same boat. And they basically have two fronts now to defend against, legally, when that inquiry starts. Obviously, the inquiry hasn't started yet, to my knowledge. Now, they don't have to actually publicly announce when the inquiry starts, so we might not find out about that for a bit. If he is found guilty of insider trading, this is going to be a problem. And no matter what, the stigma will be a thing. Intel already doesn't exactly have the best reputation, especially amongst geek circles. So this is pretty damaging. This also, if you'll remember, happens right about when Intel and AMD started working together. You remember that? You remember how it was basically Intel and AMD teaming up against NVIDIA? So this isn't, from a purely financial perspective, isn't just going to affect Intel. It'll be interesting to see what NVIDIA does about this, actually. Because if I was them, and I hate to say this because it's actually morally repugnant, but I would go ahead and take advantage of the situation, because this is basically handing NVIDIA a blank check for a while. You know what I mean? So, Anthony, I hope that that explains a little bit more why this could be a problem. Because here's the thing. NVIDIA could use this to do something awesome. They could. Intel, AMD could use this to do something awesome. They could, totally could. What is more likely is NVIDIA will use this to take a greater, let's call it a market share, a greater chunk of the market share. And then basically, now that you're working with us, now that you're more tied to us, you know, and kind of pull an Intel, if you know what I mean. Because Intel doesn't quite have a monopoly, but they kind of do. It's borderline. So anyways, that's yay. Remember, I'm only reporting on real news, not drama. Yeah, monopolies can get bad super fast. Holy crap. See, here's the if I could say one more thing before I switch topics. Some people might be like, well, why can NVIDIA take such advantage of this? I know this is going to sound stupid, but it's surprising how many people... How do I put this? Let's say you've got two competitors, okay? They're about equally bad, okay? One of them suddenly does something really horrible and is now worse. So now they're now down here. So you can see, and this is a very common thing, a lot of people are going to look at this one over here, right? And be like, oh, they're so much better. And will think of them more positively because of the fact that they're not any better, it's worth noting. They're still bad. Remember, initially they both started as bad, but now they're worse. So they basically just got a public relations boost. So people could start looking at NVIDIA, who, I remind you, is already kind of a shady company, and say, oh, dude, they're so much better than Intel, right? What else do I have to talk about? Right. Let's talk about something a little more positive, shall we? Yeah, exactly, Roximus. So, our next topic. Here, what's my timestamp? Wow, I've been talking way too long about that Intel thing. Jesus Christ. Freaking Intel. Let's talk about Nintendo. Zelda. So, okay. Hillary versus Trump. No, I don't want to talk about that. There's no reason to. For those of you not aware, there are rumors flying about at Mach 20 that we're having a Nintendo Direct this coming Thursday. I believe that is. Yes, Thursday, the 11th. Now, those rumors come highly likely. It is worth noting they're still rumors. The odds of us having a Nintendo Direct in January in general are through the roof. Like, we are extremely likely to have a Nintendo Direct this January, one way or the other. And hopefully I'll have some goddamn Nintendo news to actually report on. So that's cool. They've talked about a few things they're going to be showcasing. The thing that makes me curious is the... Like, okay, I'm trying to phrase this as clearly as I can, because I basically heard news about a new Zelda on the 3DS, and then after did my own digging, found out that it's actually still a rumor. So we don't actually... Oh, gotcha, Gallade. That makes sense. Good example. Good example. It is still a rumor. It's just there's so much information about it that it is either a rumor that someone is making up, or it's a leak. And I know that's basically a coin flip at this point, but I thought I'd report on it anyways because I'm curious if it's true. So the new they're talking about a new Zelda, which is going to be on the 3DS, which is a new version, we'll talk about that in a second, of Link's Awakening. What is effectively, what is being talked about as if it is a proper remake of Link's Awakening on the 3DS. Now I'm going to pause there. I have something else to say, but I want to see people's reactions to that. And yeah, I only did a review on Breath of the Wild. Yes, Link's Awakening happens right after LTTP. It's the same Zelda and everything. Or same Link, sorry. I mean, it is the same Zelda. Oh, God, Leander. No, Link Between Worlds was a sequel to, well, same timeline. It's okay, Javan. Why not on the Switch? That is a damn good question, but I actually do have an answer for that question. I'm seeing people's responses here. Well, you've never played Zelda? By all accounts, it's not going to be a graphics overhaul. In fact, I gotta say one thing. Nintendo is shady as crap, too, and they do things that piss me off. Absolutely. But it's really weird how in an age of, you know, ports and high-def, you know, we're going to change the graphics and that's it. Nintendo doesn't do that. You know? Like, with, I think, maybe only one exception ever. Well, that's not true. That's not true. With only, like, 4 exceptions ever, Nintendo doesn't just re-release stuff. They're like, okay, here. So here's this. But also, here's some new stuff. You know, I mean, Ocarina of Time on the 3DS. Majora's Mask on the 3DS. Mario 64 on the DS. No, I would say no, Little Billy. We had a weird example with Star Fox 64, which was actually a remake of Star Fox. Then we had Star Fox Zero, which was a remake of Star Fox. Like I said, I'm not fully on Nintendo's side. It's just... they do some good stuff, and then they do stuff that makes me go... yeah, they just kind of do their own thing. There's examples of this. There's the recent Fire Emblem, too. That was a remake as well. But anyways, I'm getting off topic. Point being, by all accounts, this will be, at the very least, a remake. Possibly an actual proper remake. But here's the really weird part. Based on the information I've seen, I'm going to skip the specific facts, forgive me, because there's actually a lot, like I said. I'm going to just go to my own speculation on the matter. By all accounts, this was being developed while Breath of the Wild was being developed. This would explain why it's on the 3DS, by the way, because a year and a half ago, the 3DS was still going strong. I know, right, Khalid? So that would explain its presence on 3DS. And there's information about them sharing developers and information and, I guess, design is the way I want to put that, between Breath of the Wild and this game. In other words, this game might actually be, assuming it's real, assuming all of this is true, a Breath of the Wild take on Link's Awakening. Now, the way that's being discussed and phrased makes it sound like it's still basically Link's Awakening. You've got the dungeons, you got the Windfish instruments, you've got the same basic story, but instead of the puzzle-style overworld that I've talked about, it's going to be a Breath of the Wild open explorative overworld. I have to admit, that sounds neat. That does. I really do like that idea. I do have one final thing to mention here. The way it's been discussed is they deliberately go out of the way to not use the word remake. Now, this is probably at least partially down to some translation issues, because all of this stuff comes from Japanese, obviously. But the way it's being discussed is this is the Star Fox 64 to Star Fox. Now, I know I just said that Star Fox 64 was a proper remake of Star Fox, but it's worth noting that that wasn't the intention. I'm struggling to describe this because this is the kind of thing that's actually kind of nonsensical to me. But the idea here is that several developers at Nintendo, including several of the main A-team, have this intention of basically taking the same idea and doing what I would probably call a reimagining of it, which usually tends to come out as a proper remake of it, but with reimagining tints. Because there is a difference between a reimagining and a proper remake. Quick example. Battlestar Galactica. I know it's a TV show, but Battlestar Galactica, the new one, was a reimagining of the old Battlestar Galactica. It would not qualify as a proper remake of the old Battlestar Galactica, because it isn't. But you could see how, without that reimagining tint, the new Battlestar Galactica could be seen as a proper remake of the old Battlestar Galactica. So it's kind of its own little category, and really, I'm sure there's some exceptions to this, but Nintendo are basically the only people who do this. This whole reimagining, pseudo-remake thing. I'll have to come up with a new term for this at some point, because Nintendo keeps doing this. But by all accounts, this is what they're going for with this. This sort of reimaginating. There we go. I'm not going to call it that. That's stupid. But, you know, using the same general ideas, but basically going back to board. You know, going back to the chalkboard on it otherwise. That's what they keep talking about with regards to this game. So there probably will still be a Windfish and reawakening of stuff, you know, and there might still be, God, I can't think of her name all of a sudden, the girl who turns into a seagull. Reimagine making. Well, a reimagining is a little bit different. We're talking about gradients here, but a reimagining usually takes. I mean, okay, let me put it to you this way: the new. I'll keep using Battlestar Galactica because the new Battlestar Galactica, if you really sit down and have watched the show, which I'm sure several of you have, and have watched the old show, which I'm sure at least one of you have, they really are very different shows. The new one is not a proper remake of the old one. I mean, you could see how there's a lot of connections there, but for the most part, it just takes the base concept and goes in a completely different direction with it. That's a reimagining, okay? So this is more like taking the base concept and going in the same direction with it, but with new staff and new team. Like I said, it's its own thing, and I swear to God, Nintendo's the only company that does this. Believe it or not, War Wager, no, I don't. So, we'll see. I'm not sure what I think of this. I mean, I wish it wasn't on the 3DS. That'd be nice. Because, I mean, I love my Switch. It's my portable system. Can I use it, please? I want more stuff on my Switch. Anyways. But that's all I have to say about that. I'm kind of running out of time, so let me go ahead and talk about my last topic here. I am at least excited about this to a small extent. Let's go ahead and talk about Dragon Age book. So, I believe the Switch... This is probably going to be the last year of the 3DS, one way or another. Financially, it's reaching the end of its cycle, even if the Switch didn't exist. So, planetary mechanics. So, as you can tell. No, Hightown is coming out in July. Just process that for a second, for those of you who know what I'm talking about. Yeah, the book. I don't know what to make of this. This is one of those things that makes no real sense when you think about it. Because, first of all, it's worth noting that as of this exact moment, we're not sure if we're getting a Dragon Age 4. No, seriously. As of right now, Dragon Age 4 might legitimately not actually come out. We do know they were working on it, absolutely, and that we did know that they had ideas about it, and then we did know that they put some of those ideas away, and then several people who had said those things about the fact that they were definitely working on Dragon Age 4 don't work there anymore. And we basically haven't had any news since the fact that those people left the company. So as of right now, it is actually legitimately in the air if Dragon Age 4 will ever come out. And it's a whole lot more in the air if this game will actually be any good. So the reason I bring this up is because, yeah, it is fully possible that they would scrap the project. There's actually no reason they wouldn't from a purely financial perspective. I mean, I hate to say that, but from a purely business perspective, you know, putting myself into... Hang on, let me put myself into EA's shoes. We here at EA believe in money. No, seriously, though. Putting yourself in the business perspective, there is actually very little reason to go ahead and release Dragon Age 4 right now. They might continue doing what I like to call passive development. I forget what the professional term is for that, but basically doing casual work on the side as like a secondary project for the next couple of years, and then put that together into something concrete later on. You know, a lot of the prep work kind of a thing. But pulling the plug on Dragon Age 4 might not be a terrible idea, given the way the brand has been destroyed at this point in time from public consciousness, and from the fact that EA itself has just taken a massive hit in terms of its public affairs and everything else, actually. So, Dragon Age 4 coming out right now, unless the game was legitimately awesome, would probably be a bad idea. Now, by the way, thank you. My elbow, check it out. I know you can't quite tell, but I can straighten my arm out without needing help now, so I'm doing better. Thank you. So yeah, Dragon Age 4 would be a bad idea right now. With me? Dragon Age 3 was actually financially successful, yes, but that also came out several years ago. And again, EA right now needs basically guaranteed money, and Dragon Age 4 is not guaranteed money. Again, financial perspective. I'm not saying that as a creative person I would be okay with this, but then again, creativity doesn't have anything to do with anything when it comes to financial decisions. I liked Inquisition too. Some people tend to forget that. I liked Inquisition, but then again, I also like Dragon Age 2, so the hell do I know. Anyways, we're getting a little bit off topic. The point here is one of the reasons why this is weird is because of the fact that we haven't had any Dragon Age news, that it coming out might actually be a bad idea, and that they've decided to release an in-lore book in real life. Because this actually is Hard in Hightown, the book that Varric wrote, the first one specifically. And that's a weird move. This is the kind of thing that normally would be done as like a co-announcement. Like, hey, by the way, Hard in Hightown is coming out, and also here's the Dragon Age 4 trailer, right? Like, that's kind of how you would do it. Or, you know, the Dragon Age 4 trailer is coming out, and then, like, wait a week, and then, now that the buzz has died down a little bit, by the way, the book's coming out, you know, drumming up interest, drumming up sales. But instead we've had the book's coming out. So I have no idea what the hell they're doing with this. Now, that being said, I have a question for you guys. Do you want me to buy this and read it on stream? Like I do with the Warcraft Chronicles. It's, now, if I'm not mistaken, you won't get the full experience, but I'm only offering the offer if you really care. Give me just a moment. Pull it back up here. Here we go, Hard in Hightown. Now here's the problem. It's a comic book. So I can't actually showcase it the way I would like to. You know, I'd be like, you know, oh my god, this guy does this thing, and now he's gesturing this, and then he does this other thing, and he gestures like this. So it's not really going to be the full experience. But if you really want me to, I will. That is a hell of a split. Looks like no is currently winning. Anybody watching this on YouTube, feel free to give me your opinion there too. Like I said, I just thought I'd give you guys the option. In truth, at first I thought it would be a book, in which case I'd be a lot more inclined. I'd be like, yeah, sure. It's a freaking comic book. Yeah, I know, right, Mythwork? Speaking of which, don't forget, we do have an active poll right now. Please vote on that. That's going to be up for a minimum of 2 more weeks. So you have tons of time to weigh in on that. That's actually all the news I have, which is good, because I only have 20 minutes left. So there's actually one last topic. Speedruns. Okay, so for those of you not aware, you know what? I want a different background. Hang on. This money background bothers me. Let's get a more awesome. Anyone want an awesome background? There's one background I'm really proud of. And that would be this one. I think this background, whoop, has sound. I think this background worked out pretty well. So for those of you who know what, AGDQ is starting in 20 minutes. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and rehost AGDQ here on this channel. On the off chance you don't know what I'm talking about, AGDQ 2017 is a marathon speedrunning event which is designed to generate funds through donations for the Prevent Cancer Foundation, one of, I think, the 3 donation incentive places, or donations of 3 charities in the world that I actually support. Admittedly, I'm biased. Hang on, Max time. Admittedly, I'm biased because of the fact that, obviously, you know, financial side of things. But I'm looking forward to it. What they do is they do speed runs. If you don't know what a speed run is, it's actually really simple. You play a game very, very quickly. You know, and there are all sorts of rules and categories that go into it. So we'll be having different categories, we're having an LTTP randomizer race. That'll be fun. We'll have a whole bunch of other stuff going on. That'll be awesome. But we'll be rehosting that all week, which means I won't be streaming anything because this channel will be nothing but AGDQ 2017 until it's finished, which will be next Sunday morning. I will still be in the chat. You are more than welcome to watch it here. The whole reason we do this is because AGDQ's actual Twitch chat is disgustingly horrible, just saying that as bluntly as possible, and so is their official IRC chat. So if you want to have a chat that doesn't involve people spamming things and disgusting things and horrible things, then you can stay here and watch it and actually have people to talk with and say, oh my gosh, that was cool, without being able to have to be... 2018, sorry. We will still be doing a board game night that will be going they'll be going to YouTube, not to stream. We will still be doing Guido's Apocalypse World game that will not be streamed as well. So I will not be able to add my voice because of reasons, basically. But yay. I have not, to be as blunt as possible, I'm not actually good enough to attend a GDQ, so I won't actually be present there physically. Except maybe at SGDQ this year. We're still thinking about that. We're still looking into that. Might actually be there, but anyways. Yes, Dakoita, some year. I don't know. There's no word on it whatsoever. The other thing I wanted to mention really quick is that I will be doing a whole lot of theater work over the coming 2 weeks. So anybody who is involved in the theater side of things, hoip, maybe? Anybody who is not involved in the theater side of things, then you can just get hoiped for it coming out, because goddammit, we're doing theater stuff. Be excited, come on. How far do I live from BlizzCon? I'm literally on the opposite side of the country from BlizzCon. One last thing I do want to say is kind of a preface for those of you who have not actually watched a GDQ event before. They're not all amazing. Like, I mean, the events have all been amazing. I've been watching these since 2010. But, there's good runners and bad runners. So, what I'm trying to say is if you happen to poke your head in and you see a runner who's doing this. Okay, so you see I'm getting the key early. Try and put... Give it another shot, please. There are bad runners and there's bad presenters. Yeah, there's good commentators, there's bad commentators, there's good couch runners, there's bad couch runners. Please give it more than one shot. Please. Because there are some really good runs, and there have been every year. I have yet to see a single GDQ since 2010, which is actually before they were called GDQ, that has not had at least some good. So please give it another shot if you're at least interested. Now, it is hard to do that, Mini-Bees. Very few people can do that. I can do that, kinda. Depends on the game. Also, real quick, the next Lore Walker Theater we're working on, the one we're working on for the next 2 weeks, is Final Fantasy IX. So get hoip. I'm going to go ahead and chop this off, and I will be seeing you guys in the chat.